Okay, welcome everyone to the February 29th, 2024 meeting of the Oswego County Industrial Development Agency. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and number one on the agenda is the minutes from our January meeting. Has everyone had time to review them and check them out?
We should do a roll call just first.
Okay.
Staff.
Roll call vote. Roll call. Tim.
Yes, sir. Nick and Alec.
Here.
Peter Clark.
Here.
Len Chick.
Here.
Tim Stall is here. Gary Toth.
Here.
Barry Trimble.
Here.
Mark Recko.
Here.
We are all here.
And Kevin, can you tell us who else is here?
Sure. From staff, we have Austin Wheelock, our Chief Executive Officer, Kevin Caracoli, our General Counsel, and myself, Kevin LaMontagne. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the agency. And that's it. We have no guests from anywhere else at the moment.
Okay. That said, let's entertain a motion on the minutes, approving the minutes.
I like it. I'll second it.
Tricia, seconded by Tim. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Notice of meeting was in the Pale Times on February 13th. We have a treasurer's report from January 31st, 2024. Everybody had time to review that.
Is there any comments, Kevin?
As a bit, basically it's very consistent, and as expected, we're of course seeing the additional costs with the OC, new structure for the OC administrative fee. We have had 2 more closings, soon to be 3, before or since these financials were published, so we have some additional revenue that hasn't hit the January books yet. You can see us still lagging behind. I took a look ahead with February revenues that have come in that aren't reflected in this statement versus last year. We're basically on pace with last year, and last year ended up okay. Austin and I have looked at the deals that we expect to close between now and the end of July at the end of our fiscal year, and we should be basically at essentially close to a break-even point, plus or minus, by the end of the year. Kind of a rough look. So I think we're pacing about where we expected. Reality on the revenue side is we do have a entire basket of fully approved solar projects that haven't closed. 6 of them, I think, still. One that looks like it's not going to close. 5 potentials, and really we haven't had the income activity we had expected with that kind of application and approval activity with last year with those. But we still have some new projects coming in. There's one on the agenda today that could close before the end of this fiscal year, ACLS. So.
We have a closing for Market House next week. We have, we've had a flurry recently, and you usually do right around the March 1st for taxable status dates, but we also have a few of them that we already know are going to be done in March and probably April as well. So I think we're going to be on track for where we want to be. And we have some pipeline of projects that are still coming in. So I think we're right around where we thought we would be. It's just taken a little bit longer for them to close in a year than we thought they would.
Question, Kevin. So when you said the basket of these closed,
Yeah.
what is kind of do you feel confident most of them will be going forward? Or I know these solar projects are a little dubious, so.
I think I'm personally, I think you and Austin may have talked about this a little bit too, but my confidence that they'll all close is decreasing. We're currently working with one of the projects that, well, we're not directly working with them, but we're aware one of the projects is looking to kind of give up its IDA benefits and look to a different model for assessment and paying taxes on the solar farm. That's our Mexico PV LLC. And we've seen that happen before. There's one up in the town of Richland several years ago where that happened. So we don't, I guess from just the perspective of just getting these closed and losing confidence that all of them will close. And we still understand there are large national grid capacity delays, either engineering or getting the right parts and relays and things that they need. So,
What are some zeros in that first column?
for on the loan side, or
Yeah, on the asset side.
yeah. So the zeros in any of those loans are the ones that have paid off since last fiscal year end.
Okay,
So-
I wasn't sure. I mean, yes. I just
If
wanted.
it's a 0 in the left column, it's paid off. If it's a 0 in the right column, for simplicity, it's a new loan. There's 2 of those right now down in the IRP section, kind of on page 2.
Yeah. I mean, I was just looking at Field Shoulder. I mean, they paid off the one.
Yeah, and the other one is paid off. I
route
think
down there.
this year.
There's a couple other ones. Okay, and they were all paid off.
Mhm, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
One technical exception is D&D logging and lumber on IRP number 1 I mean, they paid off in part, and that was a settlement, but other than that, they
Yes.
paid off in kind of in due course. Deb's Diner, under IRP, was another one we had been working with for years to get collected, but he finally paid it off, so. A lot of work.
And one of the ones that we've talked about in the past, we've always said that is actually current and is in paying right now is Canine Foods. They are
Right, yeah.
current and paying, so.
Yeah, I mean, they used to have 0 on another column, but.
That's right. On the
Yeah.
change, on the principal,
Right.
column, right. And on the cost side, sort of the operating costs of the idea, I think we're pretty much in line with where we've been, no surprises.
Kevin, do you have any interest in applying for any additional funds for loan? How does our overall amount of available funds look?
A couple of points you probably also wants to jump into. On the available funds, we can actually see that on here, which is because the way we bookkeep for the IDA, it's basically the bank account balances that show us the available funds. But you have to consider any loans we might have made that are committed, which aren't extensive right now. But we have substantial money to lend out. I'm just looking quickly between the two IRP accounts. We have about $700,000 with some 100 and
There's some that have been already made that just haven't been closed yet.
Yeah,
with
so-
that balance, you obviously subtract out some of those
probably
projects.
and we also have some additional money we can draw from USDA. So probably about 500 to 600,000 of USDA loans available to be made. The big one is our HUD revolving loan fund, which is $1.4 million in it. We did make a commitment to Market House Oswego to lend $200,000 out of that, but right now we don't have any other activity in that account. We've been working, I guess, from looking internally and prioritizing which loan fund we're using. I've been prioritizing IRP number 2 because that's still,
You need a fully drawn.
we're still drawing from the approved loan from USDA, and we have to get that drawn. We're on there's about 140 left to draw, which is about 2 or a little less, which is $200,000 loans. We'll clear that out.
And that's the one that once we've lent them, they come back in again, we then can reloan them.
Correct. Yeah. But we're still in that with that IRP 2 fund. We're still in that initial phase where we're drawing. USDA share is roughly speaking 75%. IDA is roughly 25%. We're still drawing that down.
Do we have a maximum of a project that we can lend? So for example, we got some big stuff, we think coming down the pike here. Is there only, I know with Market House, it's a pretty good sized project, we're lending a couple $100,000 to that. What is it just kind of internally, what do we set up as our percentage that we look to target?
We've, of course, if you look into history, we've done all kinds of models, but with the IRP loan fund, it's prescribed by those rule terms of that program that we can only lend up to 50% of a project. We try to look at, all inclusively a project cost, so we're really defining the project as big as we can so we can lend as much as possible. With the HUD loan, and of course, micro loans are capped at $25K. The HUD loan really has no cap. It's probably more about our judgment of how much we want to be involved in one particular project.
One clarification on IRP is it, for the most part, it's sort of the lesser of 50% or $100,000. We do have the ability to do one large project, but only one large project. So once you've done that, you can't really do another.
But even that would be capped based on the formula, but it's a little over 150, maybe 165 or something we could do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there is definitely, the point to take away from that is we definitely have lending capacity at our disposal.
Any other
Good question.
questions? Comments? Take a motion on the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second. Greco did one. Anything else to discuss while it's on the table? All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the nomination of new officers for the IDA. I'd like to request, Gary, you said you had interest in making a nomination?
Yeah, I'd like to make the nomination for Nick to serve out the remaining year as chairman until we have our annual meeting, and also reaffirm the appointments of Mark Greco as vice chair and Tim Stahl as recording
We'd
secretary.
be nominating Mark as
Be
the
nominating
vice chair,
Mark.
but I was the vice chair.
Okay, nominating Mark and reaffirming Tim Stahl as recording secretary. Thank you for the correction.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion by Barry Toth, seconded by Barry Trimble. That's one nomination, is there anyone who would like to nominate any competing slate of officers? Okay. That said, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Nick.
Tim. You think? Yeah.
And Mark,
Say it now.
and Tim, thank you very much.
And that's it, right, as far as the election is concerned?
Yeah, and as you said, we will, this is something that will come up every August at our reorganizational meeting, which takes the first meeting after the end of our fiscal year, so we will, this year and every year going forward, will be done at our August IDA meeting.
Okay. Item number 5, ACLS Direct LLC, Kimball Family Properties, initial resolution.
Yeah, I'm gonna start that off, and I know Al's gonna fill in as well. So that this is one of the new projects we just mentioned that has come online, or become active. This is ACLS is a independently owned printing company located currently right now in the town of Clay, but you might refer to the area as Liverpool, and they operate in a 10,000 square foot lease facility there. What they do is they do print there, laser printing or digital printing and offset printing, folding, mailing, warehousing and distribution of like printed material, whether it be mailing goods and timing, basically direct mail, but also some other printing goods, printing, design, graphic design services. So it's a basic print shop with a specialty in direct mail. They
So create like, political signs and other sorts of,
Right.
Signage and things like that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So they're looking to expand their footprint to give them more space to increase efficiency and also add employees and just to handle additional volumes and relocate to the industrial park in Phoenix. So they would buy 3 acres there. Also, we'll give some details about that, and then construct an 18,000 square foot building on that site. They are currently working through the site plan process with a local engineer and the town of Schuylkill. So all in all, it's a good job. It is a relocation of a business from Onondaga County, and there's certain procedural steps we'll need to take to notify Onondaga County of this. But it's something we've seen before. People are looking for buildings, looking for sites, and where it's convenient. And in fact, it's convenient for this particular company. We've seen this before with others, such as EJ in the industrial park. And of the employees, all but the owners, the owner and his wife, who both work there full time, the staff, the 11 other staff, all live much closer to Phoenix than they do to the current location in Liverpool, or Clay.
I believe
So
they're
it's
all except for one are Oswego County residents.
residents, yeah. So it's a good move for them from that perspective as well. Yeah. And Austin, you want to give an overview of where they are with all the property?
Sure, so as you mentioned, they actually just last night went to Town of Schuylkill Planning Board for their introductory meeting, and we anticipate that process will either it'll wrap up at their March or their April planning board meeting. They are looking to purchase property from Operation Oswego County in the existing industrial park there, 3 acres across from EJ. Has already gone to the Operation Oswego County Real Estate Development Committee. They have already approved contingent purchase offer, obviously contingent on them getting site plan approval and then subdivision approval for the project. So it's not a done deal yet because they still need to go through that process. But we've come to terms in terms of sale and everything else related to that. I believe, I don't have the application in front of me, you do, they have 11 current employees, I believe they're looking to add another 10, I believe, something like that.
It's basically 6.
6,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
yeah. So,
But a substantial increase for a small company,
yeah,
of
and
course.
they're currently at about 11,000 square feet, 10 to 11,000 square feet, and they're going to 18,000. They have no room right now to expand in their current facilities, and they're leasing those facilities as well, so they'd like to make an investment, own their own property, and bring that business to Oswego County. So it's a good company that we've been working with for several months now, and the project, when they originally looked at it, they were anticipating it being a much lower cost project, and recently through working with they're working with Mike LaSalle on their engineering and site development, they've found that their project costs are much higher than they originally anticipated. So they approached us, the IDA, of how we may be able to help them to make the project more affordable. So that's why this has come forward to the IDA. So at this point, we are looking for, and Barclay Damon has taken a look at the project, and based on the application that they've determined that this is an eligible project for IDA benefits. We are looking for an initial resolution to move forward with holding a public hearing in the town of Schuylkill for the project.
Okay.
Any other things you want to add on that, Kevin?
No, thanks.
Oh, other than, there is one component we will need to, not us, but Operations Oswego County, the landowner, will be participating in subdivision approval. There's a lot of activity over there. There's two separate properties that are being looked at, so we're gonna package it together and go once to the town of Schuylkill and get subdivision approval for both of those lots, so.
How much is left over there?
There's probably, of usable acreage, I would say probably about 20 of usable acreage in the existing park, which is more reason we really need to move and get things going in the expansion site, because we have, if you saw your newsletter that was sent out to the IDA board, we have two projects. One of them is looking at this 3 acres, another one that's looking at about 8 acres, and then so after that, you're gonna have about 10 acres left of developable property within the inner loop with what we call it there at the park. So about 7 acres there in the inner loop, and then 4 acres next to where Daldrop's gonna build. So a lot of things going on right now. 3 projects will probably be all built at the same time between Daldrop, this one, and another project that hasn't come to the IDA for benefits at this time. So yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a lot going on at once. You know, but I think it's great. It shows that there's a lot of interest in Oswego County, and there's a lot of activity happening right now. And this is before we really see the bump from Micron. You know, this is before the supply chain companies are committing to.
So I guess my next question is, what are we doing moving forward to get more space? I mean, are we actively pursuing other places so that we can
Yes, we
expand?
can talk about that in executive session.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Austin, how much of that property is currently owned by either the IDA or the businesses that are currently there? Do many of them lease, or most of them own it, correct?
All are owned by the actual business, except for the City BOCES building that's owned by Operation Oswego County and leased to City BOCES, and then the Discovery Daycare building that's owned by Operation Oswego County and leased to OCO, Discovery Daycare.
Gotcha. And so the one that you're talking about right here for this project that is being purchased from Operation
This is a
Oswego
vacant
County.
piece of land,
Got
3
it.
acres.
So Operation Oswego County owns the land out there, but the IDA doesn't own the land?
They don't own
Not
any
in
of the
that
existing part. This is the existing part,
Okay, so the new one is owned, okay.
fully owned by IDA.
Got it.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, so we need to make a motion on the initial resolution for ACLS Direct.
I'll move it.
Len, I'll second. Seconded by Mark. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, 2024 private activity bond allocation. Initial allocation of $4.9 million. Who's taking that one?
Can do that. So every year, all IDAs in the state are based on the population of your counties. You're provided sort of a pro rata portion of private activity bonds to be able to allocate to projects. So this would be for sort of industrial revenue bonds done through the IDA. So like I said, it goes up based on it's a formula based on population and based on some sort of the increase every year. So last year in 2023, it was 4,695,000, and then this year it's 4,929,000. If you do not use that, it goes back to the state and into a pool that can then be used by anybody in the state, or it could be by the state themselves if they were to do that. So
Sam, have we used that historically?
not in recent past. So what the issue has been in recent past is that, and when I say recent past, I mean up until probably the last 18 months, is that interest rates were so low that the cost of doing bond financing was not feasible with where bank rates were. I mean, when bank rates were 3-4%, you couldn't really compete, because what this does is it kind of reduces the cost, the interest rate, because it's a tax exempt sort of bond. So it makes more sense when interest rates are high because it can exempt more percentage of what that is. So I would say now I think there is more interest. It's just trying to marry a project, and these sorts of bonds for projects are it's like trying to thread a needle because a project can only be up to a certain size. I think actually the last time we did a project like this was with Fulton Company back in 2012. And so the project can only be up to a total project cost, and the bond issuance can only be up to a certain bond issuance. And so sometimes it's a challenge to try to find a project that threads that needle. But I think this now knowing what we have for this year, we are actively looking for projects that might fit something like this. So. The one we just did here, I don't think that's going to fit. The one we just did that initial resolution on, but there could be another one that we could look at that.
Do you know historically, when the last time this has been around for quite some time, correct, this program?
Yes.
Have we, as the IDA, done this before? Is there a time years ago, or is it never really worked?
I can jump. I mean, there is a history of doing a lot of bond financing by the IDA. If you look in these cabinets, you'll see all the old deals 30 years ago. But a couple of things have changed. I mean, the cost of construction and things have changed. So this $10 million cap has been in place for a long time, and as Austin referenced, and I couldn't quote exactly what it is. There's also a kind of overall size of the project. So
$20 million project.
Yeah. So you have to find a manufacturer, and they're only for manufacturing essentially. So you have to find a manufacturer or distribution, I guess, that would fit right in there. And then also the payback on those upfront costs. I mean, it depends on the interest rates at the time, but somewhere in the $5 to $7 million range for project costs. So you have to find a project between like 5, 6, 7 million and 20 million. And truthfully, there aren't that many that fit in that. There are also manufacturers. Then also the IDA used to be able to do financing had a broader kind of purview for bond financing, like could finance not-for-profit institutions. This was back in the days, a lot of financing for Oswego Health and other hospital systems around the state. The financing of healthcare in New York State has changed over the decades, so they're not so dependent on bond financing. Incidentally, the Civic Facilities Corporation will be considering will certainly approve bond financing for Tricia. I don't want to give Tricia any doubts. I'm sorry, for Connect Care. I don't want to give its CEO, Tricia Peter Clark, any doubts. But that not-for-profit financing through the Civic Facilities Corp is not part of this bond cap. So it's, and in fact, the Civic Facilities Corp has no cap, which is an interesting potential opportunity. So there's kind of unlimited possibility, only constrained by, our the economy of Oswego County and the type of groups we have here.
That used to be the law related to this type of financing, but they put those caps and measures in at least 20-ish years ago.
I mean, it's too restrictive to use, essentially, or at least for the projects we've had. Would that make sense?
I've heard stories of attorneys in Syracuse that worked on those bonds back in the day, IDA bonds, not just Oswego counties, but there was a lot of money being made in those conference rooms filled with attorneys back then. So
Yeah.
Something built those towers in Syracuse.
So this is letting us know what our allocation is without any additional request. If there was a project that came about that had a need for say $8 or $9 million, we could make a request to the state for more, because like I said, what happens if it's not used, it kind of goes back into a pool that can then be used by anybody, but it has to be done based on you need to make a request for it. So if we did something under this, we would have to make no request. Good question though.
Okay, so that was just information only, right?
Yes.
Austin, would you like to introduce new?
I will. Yeah, we're gonna actually jump ahead in the agenda here, just so that Alex doesn't need to stay in for everything else. So I would like to, at this point, I know we had talked about this before. Late last year, Operation Oswego County went in a different direction in terms of our marketing and communication staff, and early this year we started a search for a new marketing and communications manager, and I'm happy to say that we have over the last, I'd say 3 weeks now, maybe getting close to 3 weeks.
Well, this will be under 4 weeks.
Okay, so Alex Fitzpatrick has joined Operation Oswego County as our marketing and communications manager. So I want to welcome you and introduce you here to the IDA board, which you'll be working with very closely.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you. Hi. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you.
So Alex comes to us from, she is a resident of the town of Volney, and she has worked in probably the last 9 years in terms of marketing and sales, and is has a good background in what we do in terms of marketing and promotion. It was a very competitive process to find the individual, and just happy to say that we were happy and lucky to find Alex and bring her into the organization. So.
Picked up some interior decorating.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to change your thinking.
Yeah, so she's pushing things forward, so it's good. So.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
So. And so, and just even in the first few weeks, Alex has helped us to improve our social media presence in terms of coming up with a really organized plan of getting out information. She's helped us with our newsletter, so the one that just went out last week. Alex put that together, and she's helping us on many other initiatives and things like the web portal and others to kind of get these things completed. So we're very happy to have her here, and hopefully if there's any questions you have related to marketing and communications, you could direct them to Alex.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Pleasure having you.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks. All right, well, you guys get back to it. Have fun.
All right.
So, next up on the agenda is manufacturing startup facility in Fulton.
Okay, so I have put together a draft RFP for a developer and operator for the manufacturing startup facility project that the IDA had originally proposed and had received funding from New York State from, and that has had funding allocated from the IDA for. What I still have to, I have drafted this. I provided a draft to both Empire State Development and to Department of State because we are looking to assign grants that have been received from those entities. I want to make sure that I'm not going to lose out funding on a technicality because we didn't put some language into that RFP. So once we have that, I'm also going to have Kevin Coley take a look at it. My plan is, I've got it right here, but my plan as of right now is that this will be going with your approval authorization March 14th. This would be sent out, and it would go out to the sort of the development community of really Central New York and New York State. We're going to put it out there through the IDA and make sure that we find the most qualified and an entity that puts forward the best proposal. So at a minimum, they need to meet the threshold of what we've identified as the scope of the project, a 30,000 square foot manufacturing facility, but that doesn't mean that they have to just do that. So somebody would propose a greater project, or had more to it, that would help their proposal. So in terms of the draft schedule of dates, this is going to go out Thursday, March 14th. The deadline for to set up a site visit with us would be March 29th. We'd be setting up site tours, 2 different site tours in April 5th and April 18th. Deadline to submit questions will be April 19th. And then submission of proposals date, I have here tentatively May 24th. I may want to try to get that up a bit, but so what we're trying to do is I would like to be able to select by, I would say early June, by the June meeting, who we're going to have do this project and do this on our behalf. So I want to make sure that these timelines work with the state though first before we, this is put out. This is like just my tentative schedule for this. And yeah, so what we are looking for today is an authorization from the IDA board to move forward with this model, to put this out to the private sector, to look at doing a public-private partnership on this project between the IDA and the private sector to own, operate, and manage a manufacturing startup facility at the former Nestle site.
So, this is on the current site that we currently own.
This is, as of now, this is on the current site. What we could state is that the site could change to another 3-acre site on the Nestle site. I've had conversations with the city of Fulton. They're very supportive of this model. We're working with Mayor Rice and CJ Smith at the city. They are currently working with CSX to try to figure out the access issue. And they're not opposed to us doing a project on this site or a site adjacent. So I think for now, to kind of move it forward, we're looking at it on this site, but we could include the language that it could be a 3-acre site to be moved on the Nestle site.
Okay.
Hopefully this will push the city a little bit too.
they're moving. I can tell you right now, there's been a flurry of activity related to the access, Birch Street access between CSX and city officials. So I'm very happy to see that. I'm not at liberty to say potentially prospects who are interested in the Nestle site at this point, but there's activity taking place. There will be site visits happening in March related to the overall Nestle site, including our site. So I think it's good to see this sort of things going on right now.
Okay. So what we need from us is an authorization for you to, oh, did you have a question here?
Yeah, I just was questioning, you know, this is maybe a little off track on this, but how is the DRI coming in the city of Fulton overall? Because I know it's been kind of, you know, it's kind of been put on the back shelf or quiet for a while.
So there has been activity since January and in February on that. The Mayor Rice has put together, appointed a new DRI committee. I believe, Tim, you may be on that, or
Maybe.
and so I know there's other people. I know like Brittany Jarrett. I know several other people. Caroline Shu with the Fulton CDA and several are on that. And that was actually just put together early February, I believe. And so they are going to be working on getting the municipal projects back on track and and putting out a more proactive communication structure to notify the public of what's going on and getting the projects that are sort of stalled at this point back on track. A big portion of that is also the rezoning, and the mayor has, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's looking to get that back on track as getting approved.
So there's no longer resistance in Fulton to moving forward with this project?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge. And I wouldn't say there ever was resistance to it. I think there was skepticism, maybe, just because of the time it was taking and things like that. It just of the skepticism of the DRI and how long things were taking in general. But I don't know if there was ever like a resistance. I think there was resistance to other projects in the area that potentially could have impacted our project, but with the way things are moving forward now, I don't anticipate any issues related to that, especially with this model of trying to bring in the private sector.
The resistance was within the zoning proposal, correct?
Correct.
So once that gets taken care of.
And it was related to a specific project that was in this, in the same area, Building 30. And
That
so
was holding us up because didn't want.
it was holding a lot of things up. It was holding a lot of DRI projects up.
So that's good to see that that's moving forward.
I'll move.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead, I was just ready.
We can take a motion in a second and then continue discussion. Motion by Len,
I'll second it.
seconded by Tim. This is to authorize Austin to continue down the path of releasing the RFP.
And just so I don't have to come back to you and get approval again before this publicly goes out. Obviously, it's not ready to go out yet, but my plan is this will go out March 14th. I can share it via email with you guys as well if you want to see it before it goes.
If you find out that the grants are not still available or moving forward, then put it.
No, they are still available. I just want to make sure before I put this out without putting in any language that the state wants to have related to the assignability or anything of those grants. That it's just for me. It's just me being overly cautious and making sure that I don't potentially lose out on $1.7 million that a project could get.
Awesome, you've checked with both agencies already.
They've already told me they will do it. I just want to make sure that the language is in this RFP that they require because of the state funding that's involved.
Right, because they would be, whoever is selected would be more of like a sub-recipient to you,
Correct.
so you would still get the dollars and pass the dollars down,
Well, we'd actually assign it.
or you would just reassign it.
Yeah, if we select somebody for this, what we would do is we would work on an assignment contract with the state to assign those dollars.
Reassign them,
Yes. Yeah, so I want to make sure that any language on that is in here so I don't.
okay. And that they would be required to submit all of the required documentation to satisfy the request of the state.
Yep. So I might add a paragraph or two to this that I
That's
need
what
to
I was
have in
thinking
there.
might be better to cover.
So I just want to thank Austin, you and your staff. This is, creative, out of the box thinking. It's a way of getting things done that maybe we haven't done in the past. I'm just very impressed with the whole process, and I really want to thank you guys. This is an excellent work. So thank you.
I want to thank you for moving this thing forward, because this has been sitting for too long. So, any other discussion or comments? Okay.
Motion was made by Len. I don't know who the second.
Tim, second.
Okay, so.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Austin. Number 8, solar project pilot deviation policy modifications.
Yeah, I can do this too, and I'll have, so this was sort of a efforts by, feedback from the board, as well as, what Kevin LaMontagne and I put in, and, so two documents here. One is sort of what the finished copy looks like, of what's being proposed, or what's being proposed to be amended, and then what it was before, and showing those changes. So really, the solar project pilot deviation policy, the main changes that we have looked at is increasing the annual pilot payment in year 1 from $5,000 to $7,000, which is a 40% increase, and then it would have a 2% escalator per year. We did not look at changing the term of the pilot agreement length from 20 years. We kept that, just looking at other ones around the state. The let's see here. The other major change that we put in is that for solar projects only, that the application fee be increased from $500 to $10,000, and that upon closing, the project would be credited $9,500 towards their agency fees. So at the end, it's really a $500 fee, but it's a non-refundable $10,000 if the project doesn't go forward.
Is $500 enough? I mean, it has to go to Barclay Damon.
That stays with us. $500 stays with us.
No, but I mean,
They pay
that's,
Barclay Damon fees.
That's separate.
oh, okay.
That's completely separate.
That's
They
right,
also
okay.
pay legal
They
fees.
pay that, all right.
But this would also account, that money could be applied if they switched, members, or they had to come back and make some type of an adjustment to that application, right? We've already got the money. Remember, it's $250.
We said
We
that,
approved
yeah, right.
additionally.
So we don't
I
have to
think
collect another check.
that money could be drawn from these monies as well.
Would that, should that be in the policy? The additional money that if they come back and make changes?
That language could, it could be an additional sentence.
I think that,
This
yeah,
may
something,
capture it, but
I think in number 6, maybe just wordsmithing, the balance of, maybe something like as simple as the balance of the $9,500 will be credited, or
Any non.
I mean, this one, maybe it's minutia, but 6 addresses the application fee only, not change fees,
Yeah.
but I don't know, maybe we could.
Right, I mean,
It's
yeah,
getting
that's what I was
complicated
wondering,
all of a sudden.
is that so they would know up front if they make changes when they file it, that they would wind up having to pay more money.
So you could say something along the lines of the balance of the $10,000 less any additional fees that have been incurred along with the interim will be credited to the company.
And would you reassess a portion of a cost based on the extension too?
I think that could be something to be looked at. I mean, this is a new term that's in here. We didn't have this in here before, is that any approval granted by the agency will expire 2 years from the date of approval. That's important, that we have projects that sort of just linger for a long time, and maybe the public sentiment about a project may change over 2 years based on when it was approved to, and so this would give us the ability to, a company could provide a written extension request, does not mean that the agency would have to approve it. So
Is there a fee for the extension?
That's what I was asking.
I think that could be negotiated if and when an extension is asked for.
So maybe something in there about fees will be assessed based on requested extension, or something along those lines.
If you had 2 years to do this and you want to extend it, I don't see anything wrong with asking for another couple $100.
Yeah, because I mean, you gotta spend.
that could be-
You gotta spend time to go back.
It could
to
be
this.
the additional, similar to when you have a change in ownership or something and we're charging a $250 fee, that could, an extension could also initiate a $250 fee.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
think about Kevin's time, man, you spend so much time on all these projects, and do we ever really cover your costs? Probably
I'm
not.
wondering if $500.
If they don't close, we never do if they don't
Right.
close,
Right.
for sure.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
and that's part of, say for a hypothetical solar project that we have approved and gone through all this process, and then at the end of the day, we decide not to close, we've only gotten $500 for our time. So this is to help us to
Sure.
to capture some of that in the event that a project never closes.
Do you think 500's enough?
I don't think 500 is enough, but I think $10,000 is enough if they don't close.
No,
Well,
five,
no,
it's
I-
500 enough if they close.
Oh, but there's also project fees. There's project fees associated with project. 3/4 of 1% of the project cost, so yes.
Oh, in addition to
Yes.
the application, this is just application.
Yes.
Correct. We're not changing any of the project fee amount, we're just changing the application.
Application and the structure
Okay.
of the pilot, right?
Okay,
The 7,000 per meg, 2% increase annually,
Okay.
capped at 20 years.
okay.
Exemption only on the solar arrays and the land that contain.
All right.
I think number 6 can be adjusted right at the end, just say, describing the application or the balance thereof in the event additional fees are increased for changes requested by the applicant. Right? That-
Perfect.
That's good.
That covers.
Yes.
Sounds good.
And then what about number 7 regarding the extension? Would you add anything in there about additional costs?
I think it's in 6.
Or do you think it's in, it doesn't
Isn't
really?
it?
Well, six is covering any additional fees. It's not specifically stating that there
There
will be a
will be.
fee for
Right.
an extension.
Right, that's what I was.
Well, we could do changes or extensions requested by the applicant, then it
And it's,
ties that up.
and it's not just, Kevin Caracoli's time, it's Kevin LaMontagne and Austin's time too.
Well, I think it
to
was
do that.
originally Kevin, not the
Oh, I'm
Trish's
sorry.
comment.
Kevin
Yeah.
squared, but I was thinking, I mean,
Right.
obviously,
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with
The-
Kevin
the
lately, and I
three
don't
of
think that we
them.
cover our costs
Yeah.
related to how much time he invests in all
they-
these paperwork.
We
And
put
it's not even including you, I
No,
know
no,
that some
the-
of that's covered in
The
project.
labor up front is
Yeah.
certainly
Extensive,
slated for,
it's crazy.
We put equal amounts of detail and time into solar projects and then, hundreds of millions of dollars of projects, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's time is time, and
Absolutely.
I think it's, while I wouldn't necessarily think we need to look at what fees are today, that could be another thing to look
Right.
at. And it could not just be for solar projects, but for any projects it's requesting a change, but.
I know that's part of doing business, and at the same time, you have to be able to cover the cost of it too, and I have a true appreciation now, having been on the other side of it, how much time you do spend
it
to
is an
really
awful
make
lot.
it easier for the businesses, which is very helpful.
So,
And there's one thing to be said about a project that we're doing that, is creating 70 jobs, right?
Right.
We can make an argument to the residents that it's worth the money, right? The solar projects we've talked about,
Right.
it's a harder sale.
Mhm.
And so if we're also wasting staff time and not getting reimbursed for it,
Right.
I think that's a.
and, I think we've talked about, there are new state models and laws and things being proposed or that have already been approved that may reduce the likelihood that future solar projects will come to IDAs if there's a more beneficial program available at the state level. So some of this may be being done for projects that may not come to us, but I think it sends a message of what we think that these projects should be paying in Oswego County, which could also then help communities if projects were to come to them to better understand what they should be charging or what figuring out. So
And I do think it gives you a commitment at least with some dollar figures associated with it to try to get things closed.
Yeah.
Or at
I think
least you
so,
understand what you're gonna lose if you don't.
All right, Gary has one more question on this, and I think we can move on.
Yeah, the only comment I wanna make is with this new program that came out that we just ran into in the town of Mexico, this 575B, which is brand new, and we're dealing with it now. There's some issues and concerns that I have and the town has that I'd like to discuss under executive session. So if we could wait and vote on this when we come out of executive session,
You think there might be modifications to our plan that would come out of that?
well, just some questions, might not be modifications, some questions
Because there's some things I'd like to bring up.
that I would like to discuss under executive session before we actually vote on the plan submitted.
Okay, so we'll table this for now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So do we need, we have a first and a second on
No.
this, do we know that?
No.
There's not
We
first
didn't-
or
we
second.
didn't take a motion.
Not on
We
the-
haven't just had general discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. We need to do a secretary.
Just to look at it.
Technically, it should be
All right.
second before the-
yeah, we should.
Technically, any motion should be moved and seconded before the
Okay.
discussion.
I'll get on that.
Yeah.
Next item, number 10, 120.
So do we need to make a motion and a second to move this, to table this to executive session?
We
I don't
haven't
think
really
so.
even-
No, we haven't done anything.
Because we
on
just
it.
had a discussion.
Okay.
Just Gary's comment about waiting until after
Right.
Okay.
executive session.
You can modify the agenda.
No big deal, yeah.
Okay, number 9 has been taken care of, number 10, is this for?
Yeah, I'll
Where we
cover
at?
this one, but I think before we jump into it, Kevin, we need your advice on Trish's participation right now, because this is code 120 First Street is code word for the Chase and Connect Scare project, and Trish's the CEO of Connect Scare. Can she participate in the discussion? Has to recuse?
I think, I mean, ideally, if there is a recusal, the recusal is from both discussion and the voting of a particular matter like this.
Okay.
Best practice suggests, with all due respect, Trish, that if you do have a conflict or recusal, that you actually remove yourself from the room,
Sure.
so as not to influence the debate around you, so.
So I'm gonna remove myself for an open discussion. Just let me
Is
know
there,
when you're
is there
ready.
any presentation that Tricia needs to give us on this?
No.
Before that?
I mean, personally, I feel like we've covered this project a number of times.
No, I-
and
well, I
this
just
is really
didn't know if there's anything
administrative
new.
change. No,
Okay.
nothing new other than,
Okay.
No,
well, we'll talk
that's
about it
the
after
best way
Tricia
to
leaves.
handle it.
I
Yeah,
agree,
no,
I
I'm
agree.
totally comfortable with that.
Only organizational structure changes, corporate structure changes.
Okay.
Just don't
Okay.
forget about me.
We'll call you back in.
Okay, this, we approved the initial resolution for this project at the last meeting. We had fully approved the LaChase project on behalf of Connect Scare across the river here at 120 East First Street in Oswego. We had previously fully approved it. To remind everyone, what happened is that LaChase, which was contemplated in the beginning, they brought in another partner. So the partner and LaChase, one of the LaChase organizations, will own the real estate holding company that owns the building at 120 First Street or East First Street, Oswego. So those two partners will own the LLC at the top of the cost benefit analysis. Nothing has changed with the project. Connect Scare will be leasing the building from LaChase, and Connect Scare will renovate the two middle floors, the parking lot level and the basically second floor from the parking lot. The top floor will be available for lease, and the bottom floor is currently occupied by another tenant. So really, there are no changes to the project costs, the intent, or the services that will be provided by Connect Scare. It's really an administrative change by this kind of restructure here by LaChase to get the project done on their end. So it's kind of a standard package. The pilot will work a little uniquely. We've worked this out with the city assessor that square footage on an annual basis will be evaluated, and the square footage that is used by tax exempt organizations such as Connect Scare, which with the initial plan is half the building, 2 of 4 floors, approximately to half of the building, that would be zero tax or zero pilot payment, and any space used by taxable entities would be full tax. So if there was a a for-profit entity on the 4th floor, and there's already a for-profit entity on the 1st floor, and they're roughly about the same size, so roughly the building would be half tax exempt, half taxable as it stands today, depending on the tenant. There could be a not-for-profit tenant on the 4th floor. That possibility is being contemplated. But
We have the same exact structure with Oswego Health for the Volney Medical Facility.
Seneca, right.
Yeah, well, Seneca Hill, but there's also always properties Volney that they operate, and it's the same exact structure.
So, and that was what we had approved previously, same structure. And with the buy-in of the assessor, I think it seems to make sense for the city.
So nothing is changing except for the name at the top of the.
The name and then the ownership of the company that we're approving the benefits for is a partnership between LaChase out of Rochester and then another basically development and real estate investment firm also out of Rochester, both privately owned.
To be clear though, this contract, any contract that we have at the IDA or for that building has nothing to do with Connexter other than that they're a tenant.
Right.
They're not named in anything. I mean, ultimately it could be a different tenant 20 years from now, correct? There's nothing requiring that, or is
Well, it's going to be different because if we also do if this is a different conversation, but if a tax exempt bond financing is done for Connect Care related to the improvements to that, they're going to own that. That's Connect Care is going to own that. So I think it does sort of lock in Connect Care to that facility, unless they were to also sell that as well.
Connect Scares and LaChase have shared with the idea as well. They have executed a 30-year lease for the property. So, and there's potential that Connect Scare might buy the building.
I guess I was saying, as far as the IDA, this goes, this contract, is there anything that, you see what I'm saying? We're really contracting with LaChase and this other entity.
Yeah, the LaChase subsidiary, this partnership. As I see it, if there's something really happened to Connect Scare and that lease just disintegrated and the space was vacant, if they brought in for-profit tenants, the whole building would be full tax. If they brought in not-for-profit
This is current
tenant,
agreement anyway, right?
yeah,
Okay.
correct. So the agreement would survive with a different tenant. but we have a lot of evidence to show that this is a very long-term plan on ConnectScare's part.
How does that get evaluated? Yearly?
Yearly, we'll ask for basically a rent registers in a sense from La Chase and or ConnectScare. So ConnectScare will lease the whole building from La Chase, and the fourth and first floor will be ConnectScare's tenants. So we'll get that information, I suppose, from ConnectScare, and then work with the assessor. Ideally, the assessor will assess each floor independently of each other rather than just taking the building and dividing it out by square footage. Because if, say, the fourth floor isn't finished, arguably maybe that's assessed a little less than
And then
second
the
or third
pilot would be
floor.
adjusted?
Yeah, every year based on the prorated kind of taxable use or for-profit or not-for-profit use.
We do that before?
We have, yeah.
Adjust pilots on a yearly basis?
We do it on the UH properties only one, where we get the assessed value on a yearly basis from the assessor, and then we just apply the normal tax to the amount of assessed value that is not being used by a not-for-profit
So they
tenant.
pay it as a pilot, but it's
But it's based on normal tax of
Normal
a
tax.
portion of the facility.
So then there's not a period of the pilot, like, it's not a 10-year, 15-year, it's a
Oh, it's a
still
10-year pilot, sorry.
It's a
Yes,
10-year
10-year
pilot.
pilot. But it's not a standard UTEP or anything, but it's.
So what happens after 10 years?
It would go, well, it depends on if Connect,
If it stays the way it is now, what happens after?
if it stays
10
away ownership and everything, it would be fully taxable.
No,
The
Potentially.
profit square footage.
yeah.
Well, a for-profit owns it.
Right.
Like if
No, if it
Connect-
doesn't change, it would
Right.
Chase
Yeah.
would
or
own it,
I'm
right?
sorry, La Chase is a for-profit.
Right.
They would be fully taxable
Even if leasing to a not-for-profit, they don't own it,
Yeah.
so.
if nothing changed.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's, okay.
If ConnectCare in the interim buys it, they're tax exempt. It would
The
The
whole
whole-
building
it
is
would
taxed.
be
The whole
tax
building
exempt,
then.
right? Although if they're renting
I
to
was just gonna ask
for-profit,
that.
then it's a function of the assessor.
Then we go back to where
Again,
we
after the
It
pilot.
would be structured exactly like the way we're doing this. So if a
Okay.
not-for-profit owned a building and leased space to a for-profit, this is exactly how the assessor would treat it. So when we talked to Kevin Hill, he's like, "Oh, that's just how I would treat it if I did this." So we're just
then it would
taking
go
that
through
same
the
model.
city and not through us.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
So we're mimicking that structure by way of the pilot because it is privately owned to
We've
assist
done this
ConnectScare.
before.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, good.
And
So under
just-
the current 10 years, if it is 100% leased to nonprofits,
Mhm.
is there a pilot payment?
No,
There'd be no pilot payment.
Correct.
So is the idea when we receive a certain percentage that we would receive? No.
zero.
Yeah.
We'd charge a $500 annual administrative fee, but no, zero pilot bill. Mhm.
And that's happened before too.
Sure.
So, I mean, and our anticipation is that after 10 years, that ConnectCare would buy out this, but you know that's it could be executed or not executed.
And just to be clear, the assessed value on any property is subject to change annually as a result of the, assessor and assessing function. Does, practically speaking, it doesn't always. A lot of times they hold it for a while, and especially our experience when properties are under pilot agreements, the assessors kind of push those properties to the side because of, the formula that's being used, but especially if it's fixed payment pilots, but anyway, it's an annual review, not only by the IDA, but by the assessor.
okay, so what we need to do start with is the secret resolution.
Yeah, and so with the secret resolution, this project months ago was fully approved by the city. We are, in this particular case, we are declaring ourselves lead agency for unlisted action, uncoordinated review, and then we'll be approving our own seeker form. It's been reviewed by, we're using the same part one of the seeker that the city approved, so nothing has changed in the seeker from the approval by the city. The IDA will complete parts 2 and 3 based on our staff review and also council review. There's no adverse environmental impact for this project.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Barry. Any further discussion on the seeker? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Inducement resolution. Would you get a motion and a second on that, please?
I'll move it.
Barry,
I'll second.
Barry. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye,
Motion passes. The pilot
I'll
resolution.
move it.
Glenn,
I'll second it.
Tim. All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Final approving resolution,
I'll make the motion.
Mark and Gary. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
We'll go into executive session.
Yeah.
Tim, just shake your head and look down.
So at this point, it looks like we need to go into executive session. Kevin, can you explain for the audience why?
Yeah, to discuss a couple of topics, pending litigation, the acquisition or sale of property, that the public disclosure might impact that transaction, as well as the discussion of the financial history of a particular person or corporation. So we cover three different exceptions to the open meetings law in our executive session today.
So do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll move.
Mark,
Second.
Tricia. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And what time is it?
9:37.
then.
Go out.
Zoom
All right, we're back.
Okay, I'd like to take a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Tricia, Mark, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. We're now back in public session. Regarding item number 8, solar project pilot deviation policy.
I'll move as amended.
Second.
Len, seconded by Gary. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion, any opposed? Motion passes. Regarding number 11, the industrial park expansion purchase offer. We're gonna entertain a motion to decline that offer.
I'll move it.
Barry,
Second.
Mark, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No action on that one. Delinquent loan report. Need a motion to approve it as
I'll
stated.
make the motion.
Tim,
Second.
Gary, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Any other business?
Next meeting.
No other
Besides that
business?
meeting? Next meeting.
So we're looking at, do you wanna look at the week of the 18th to the
Yeah.
22nd, I think it is? Yeah, I think that there's some things that would make it, we would wanna have the meeting that week, instead of having it the very last week of March.
Well, the 19th, you're already having a civic,
I was just gonna say.
Yeah,
so we can have it. You wanna
But-
have it start
Right,
that
right.
We
way?
could
Tough.
probably do it that next week. We don't need to have it
Yeah.
early in
That's
March per
true.
se, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an issue,
Nothing
it's more of a
really.
staffing issue, but I think we can figure that out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what you mean. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we can still have all the stuff go out, it's not that big of an issue if we wanted to do that. I mean, we also have an OOC board meeting on the 18th, so it would not be fun
Oof,
doing
better push
18th
it
and
to
19th,
26th or something.
yeah. Unless you want Kevin and I to be zombies here.
More than usual.
So,
We're looking at the 25th or 26th?
we could look at the 26th, 27th, 28th.
All those are good with me.
I can't do the
26th.
27th, 26th, and 28th I can do.
26 isn't good for me.
So 28th, Thursday, the 28th?
Sure.
Thursday works.
8:30?
Sure.
Okay, so next meeting is March 28th at 8:30 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna invite you all to my meeting. I don't know why I got that.
So no other action?
Nothing else. Take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make, second.
Mark and Tricia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed?